Mr. President, I sit on the Judiciary Committee and was present for the confirmation hearing of Pam Bondi in her quest to be Attorney General of the United States. And I have to say that there was a lot to admire. She had been a competent prosecutor for many years. She was the twice elected Attorney General of a major state, and she said a lot of the right things about independence of the department and rule of law. What I couldn't get over was how things changed when she got to a topic that would have been sensitive to Donald Trump, something that would have gotten Donald Trump all twitchy. When she hit those topics, it was like, watching the plane fly into the Bermuda Triangle. And all the navs and comms go crazy. She couldn't say obvious things like, did President Biden win the 2020 election? That's an easy answer. Yes, he did, sir or ma'am. Super simple. When she can't say that, that's a sign. When she told us that there'd been a peaceful transfer of power, a room full of senators who had to flee this chamber because of the violence of January 6th and go and shelter in a secret location, and she had to tell us that there had been a peaceful transfer of power. Again, haywire. No predication, she said. She couldn't say there was no predication to go after somebody like Liz Cheney or Jack Smith. Predication is the key to being able to open a case like that. The predication is pretty apparent, or its lack is pretty apparent, and she could not agree that there was no predication to open a case. And last, she pretended that the candidate for FBI did not have an enemies list. He had an enemies list. He published his enemies list. He said that the people on his enemies list were criminals. He said that now it's time to go on the manhunt for the enemies that he identified on the enemies list. So when she can't state the obvious, it causes real concern. And it causes real concern because of the lawlessness of this administration already demonstrated in the first 2 weeks. She got a lot of questions about pardons. Would she support violent offenders in the January 6th attack on the Capitol being pardoned? And we were chastised for having asked such questions by our Republican colleagues who said, you're asking her ridiculous hypotheticals. That will never happen. Jim Jordan, that wouldn't happen. The president would never do that. Over and over again, Republicans said, that will never happen. Well, what happened? He pardoned the violent offenders. In fact, some of them are already up to no good again. We've got some arrested for assaulting police officers. We had some shot in a violent confrontation with police officers. This is just in the 2 weeks since their pardons. And here, soliciting a minor. That's the quality of people that the president was willing to pardon. So those pardons are another signal about a very strange and dangerous time that President Trump is taking us into. As my colleague from Vermont just mentioned, we've got these little characters, I call them the muskrats, running around in Treasury, running around over at USAID, getting into systems where they have no business, where apparently they're not just able to get into the payment systems for Social Security and things like that, tax refunds, whatever, but they can actually manipulate the systems. And they can leave back doors so that Elon Musk can continue to access that data even after this raid by his little muskrats is over. We don't know the details of what they've done, but there are probably a great number of laws, including privacy laws, that they are violating by running around without proper authorization through these enormous accounting databases. And of course, the billionaires that helped bring Trump to office live off data. Now they've got access to one of the biggest data sets in the world. You think they're going to be responsible about that? I sure don't. Right now, in Rhode Island, funds are frozen and people can't get straight answers about how they'll ever get access to funding that has been duly appropriated, authorized, and obligated. The freeze of those funds by the president is now in violation of not one but two court orders. So the lawlessness is apparent, whether it's the muskrats running around in Treasury looking at everybody's files, or whether it's court orders being patently violated, or whether it's violent offenders being pardoned so they can go out and solicit minors again. I mean, the whole thing really calls for probity and good judgment and adherence to constitutional norms from an attorney general. And when she can't answer as simple a question as did President Biden win the 2020 election, my alarms go off. And they particularly go off when we get to her FBI director, Kash Patel. She suggested that she'd be able to rein him in. I have my doubts. He made completely preposterous explanations of how his enemies list wasn't an enemies list, even though he had called those people criminals and that there would be a manhunt for them. He denied having a role with the J6 Choir, which was a singing group of violent attackers from January 6th. And he had taken credit for producing their recording, but pretended he didn't know that they were January 6th violent attackers. He said that he assured us that FBI agents would be protected against political retribution, which was beginning as he testified, and which is going on at the department right now, massive, unprecedented political retribution. He won't tell us what he told a grand jury in proceedings in which he pled the Fifth Amendment. Well, if you plead the Fifth, and then you go into a civil proceeding, you having pled the Fifth is something that the civil attorney can use against you. It's called the adverse inference. A jury can draw the conclusion that the testimony that you would have given had you not asserted your Fifth Amendment privilege would be harmful to your case. They are legally available to reach that conclusion. A judge will instruct them that they may reach that conclusion. And here we are in the Judiciary Committee, and we can't get an answer from this guy about his grand jury testimony. We know he pled the Fifth, and we're not supposed to take the adverse inference that a regular jury would take from pleading the Fifth? It is a mess. This guy, Patel, went into a court in Colorado to testify for Trump. How'd he do when he went in front of that court and testified? Well, the presiding judge said that he, I'm quoting here, was not a credible witness. His testimony was illogical and was, quoting again, completely devoid of any evidence in the record. Okay, so I used to be a United States attorney, and we used to take FBI agents and we would put them into court to make cases. If an FBI agent working for me had gotten that kind of a response from a Rhode Island district judge, that he was incredible, that he was making testimony that was illogical, that he could not be believed, there would be repercussions. We'd need to see if that was a Giglio disclosure problem for this person. We would need to understand why this FBI agent couldn't be trusted by a federal judge. This isn't just an agent. This is the guy who wants to run the FBI. So to trust Pam Bondi to rein in a character like this, who has virtually no experience that would qualify him to lead the FBI, says former Attorney General Bill Barr, who has ideas that are ludicrous, absolutely unqualified for this job, untrustworthy, an absolute disgrace to even consider him. A guy who ran onto his website, Kash Patel Retruthed, imagery of him chainsawing his enemies list people. This is actually a video clip. We can't play it here, but it's a video clip of him chainsawing through his enemies list. And he thought that was cool to retruth. That's the kind of person we're dealing with. Pam Bondi's going to be able to restrain him? Not if she can't even say that Joe Biden won the 2020 election. This was his last comment. He said I'd misquoted him. To the press, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections, like he didn't win it. We're going to come after you, whether it's criminally or civilly. We'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. That is what is coming to the Department of Justice. The FBI is in danger of being turned into the political enforcement weapon of this president, who is already breaking the law over and over again in just the last 2 weeks, and a woman who cannot say that Joe Biden won the 2020 election, I believe, is not going to be able to restrain this kind of misbehavior, let alone the kind of misbehavior we are seeing out of the Oval Office. So regretfully, because there was a lot to like about Ms. Bondi, regretfully, I cannot possibly vote to confirm her, and I yield the floor.